Taiwan set a new tourism record last year by successfully courting visitors from the rest of Asia. The tourist numbers correspond with Tsai's official strategy to reduce Taiwan's reliance on China and to intensify relations with Southeast Asian nations. That's why we believe that Beijing's attempt to punish Taiwan by cutting tourism from the mainland hasn't made much impact on the overall economy on this island. Last year, the number of visitors from the mainland declined to just 3.5 million people, down 18% from the previous year. The start of the decline coincided with the May inauguration of President Tsai Ing-wen, leader of the DPP. Group tours have experienced a especially harsh decline, down a third since Tsai took office. Although China denied giving any directives to discourage particular destinations, many believe there's a direct link between the two incidents. Of course, those relying on Chinese package tours for their livelihoods have been unhappy about the situation.
We lost more than 1 million people, tourists from the mainland China. So a lot of tour guides lost their job. Not only tour guide, only the restaurants and transportation also, a lot affect a lot of.
Given the situation mentioned by Mr. Zhu, there might be some relief when Taiwan announced record-breaking tourism numbers. More than 10.6 million tourists visited Taiwan in 2016, up 2.4% from the previous year, despite a drop in visits from mainland China. Growth was driven by tourists coming from other Asian countries. In 2016, the number of visitors from Thailand alone increased 57%. Likewise, the number of foreign visits from Vietnam and the Philippines grew by 34% and 23.9% respectively. There was a 34% increase in visitors from Korea, as well as more than 17% raise from Japan. Tourists from Japan and Korea are considered to be well off, who are likely to spend more money and interested in a variety of things Taiwan has to offer. All in all, this growing number of visitors more than compensated for the drop in Chinese visitors.
If you want some tourists from the other country, the first thing is airlines. If the airlines cannot direct flight from the other country to Taiwan, then for travelers, that affect too many effort. They probably will choose the another country easily to go.
Of course, the concern is not confined to just Taiwan. After all, Chinese tourists are the world's highest overseas spenders. They're expected to spend as much as $210 billion abroad this year, double the amount Chinese firms spent on overseas mergers and acquisitions in 2016. That's why tour operators and government officials elsewhere in Asia say they fear China is using its high-spending tourists as a lever to pressure its neighbors. Korea's challenge is a case in point. Korea's tourism industry is on alert as China has set out to prevent its people from traveling to the country in protest against Seoul's deployment of the high-tech U.S. anti-missile battery. According to Korea Tourism Organization, 8 million Chinese tourists visited Korea last year, which accounts for 50% of its 70 million inbound travelers, and each spent on average $2,300. Based on that figure, Korea could suffer a sharp drop in tourism revenue by $9.63 billion if it loses half of its Chinese visitors.
Since the mainland China is a developing country, they have very strong consumption power on tourism. So not only Taiwan rely on the tourists from mainland China, but also Korean or Japan or maybe Vietnam or European countries. So I don't think that Taiwan has relying too much on the tourists from China.
Of course, Chinese tourists are still welcome in Taiwan, and they still account for roughly a third of inbound travelers. But it's also very important that Taiwan keeps diversifying away from the China-centric approach. Many see the crisis as an opportunity to reform an industry too dependent on Chinese tour groups that slash prices so much and sacrifice the quality. The government should also seek to attract more visitors, including independent Chinese tourists, by streamlining visa applications and improving tourism infrastructure. But before that happens, it's safe to say that even though some companies catering to mainland Chinese visitors complain about decline in business, the overall effect on the Taiwanese economy is pretty limited.